It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Dr. Mike Gavin, Anne Arundel Community College's Vice President for Learning, and Tara Carew, who is Financial Aid Director for Anne Arundel Community College. For those that do not have seniors in high school right now, you might not know that this is the period of time where they are submitting applications and they are filling out FAFSAs and they are filling out a ton of information. And I know this because, yes, I have a senior who's getting ready for college. Anne Arundel Community College is an option for some or for many. Dr. Gavin, why is that?
Anne Arundel Community College has over 135 academic programs, so any student with any interest should be able to find their pathway to a good job or a transfer program. We have over 267 full-time faculty who are committed to student success. Their focus is actually on teaching rather than research, but we also have a significant amount of faculty who have published books, are at the top of their field. And one thing that I think is really important to underscore is that there's a myth that community colleges is the 13th grade. Community colleges in general, because they focus on teaching, are the best place for those students who need engagement in order to learn. And also, we have at Anne Arundel Community Colleges some of the best programs in the region and state. For instance, our nursing program is consistently rated one of the top 5 in the state. That includes institutions like Johns Hopkins. We're the number 12 culinary institution in the nation. We have almost all of our health sciences programs passing students at 100% rate, getting a job 100% of the time upon completion. And we have students going to any number of four-year institutions in the state at a fraction of the price because they've taken 2 years at the community college where the tuition is significantly less, but the academic rigor is just as, if not better. And they transfer very well and succeed very well, even at a better clip than those students who start out at a four-year school.
Actually, interesting you say that. There's an article from the New York Times dated October 10th, 2019. The title, Where Four-Year Schools Find a Pool of Applicants. Two-year schools. Subtitle, Colleges, including elite schools, are making it easier to transfer from community colleges, seeing a valuable source of highly motivated students. In this article, this quote, in fact, a 2019 study from the Jack Kent Cooke Foundation found that students transferring from community college to a selective four-year institution go on to graduate at higher rates than those coming from four-year colleges. 73 versus 61%. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's not a surprise. It's actually reflective of the data we see at Anne Arundel. Because we have such a focus on ensuring that our students have good experiences in the classroom and we focus on teaching, the students who transfer to a four-year school are well prepared for basically ensuring that they are doing the work that they have to do independently at a four-year school. Some of them have stayed at home for those first 2 years and sort of been baby stepped into the four-year school. And some are adult students who have gone out and worked and decided that the four-year school is what they want to advance in their career. So we provide all kinds of supports for different kinds of students that are, and that's sort of our marquee, if you will, at Anne Arundel Community College.
Yeah, there's a whole other side story within this. And again, this is an article from the New York Times dated October 10th, 2019. It says, but now amid worry about affordability and a tone around college admissions that feels more about branding than learning, students like Mr. Lee are feeding a counter-narrative to the privileged, over-anxious jostle for prestige. And it's compelling. Who doesn't love students who bet on their own drive, who have worked as landscapers and cashiers, care for parents or children, study in their cars between shifts, and feel grateful for, rather than entitled to, the education they get. This is what we've created in society.
It actually gives me goosebumps hearing that language. It's exactly what we've created, but one of the things that we're doing at Anne Arundel is to try to shift the idea of the value of community college. You see that in the national media all the time today, the value being questioned. And the discourse really ought to be more about the value of the community college in terms of how it can deliver the idea of citizenship to a student, and increase the efficacy of social justice in America as a result. And that is something we intentionally talk about with our faculty, and our faculty absolutely believe in. And we also happen to be accessible and affordable. So there's another narrative out there with the value of community college that we're also trying to address.
Absolutely. We're going to get into that with Tara in a few minutes with affordability and financial resources for students. But one other thought process not talked about in this article, but because I've seen it with my own eyes, this class of 2020 was born into a country at war that has been at war the entire time they've been alive. They've been through a recession, a major recession. They have been through mass shootings. They have been through a period of time where we have so much division in politics and on social media. And there is a rising situation where many of these kids have anxiety and depression. Does a 2-year college maybe help pave the way for some of these kids that might have more stress and anxiety than others?
Oh, absolutely. We in my counterparts area, Dr. Felicia Patterson, and actually Tara is in, we have many different programs to focus on mental health and ways to support students with regard to addiction, trauma, anything to that effect.
Addiction's another one. We
Absolutely.
have an opioid, yeah.
Another element, though, to that point is one of the things that we lose in as a society in the conversations about learning and value, et cetera, is that we're talking about humans, right? Our students are human beings. They've had specific experiences. And the work that we do at a community college, specifically Anne Arundel Community College, is trying to bring back that humanity into the way that we do our work. When we talk about programs and how much a major can lead to in terms of salary, we're not talking about what that person is like and their ability to build a team and their human interaction with other people. And so we are, one of the places that we think we can succeed in is trying to bring that back into the educational narrative, if you will.
Yeah, let's take a short break. We'll come right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Dr. Mike Gavin. He's the Vice President for Learning at Anne Arundel Community College, right up the street in Arnold. And Tara Carew is the Financial Aid Director for Anne Arundel Community College. We're talking about the benefits to a community college over a 4-year institution right from the beginning, or even not right from the beginning after someone has been out in the workforce for a while, or like me, as a veteran that's been out there that wants to come back. How do you see a lot of that, people coming back to community college?
Oh, yes. Our average age is actually 27. So we're very much geared towards the what one would call an adult student, even though I still think of them as pretty young. But not only in terms of the programs that we offer at times of different times of day and weekend, but also how you teach an adult is different than you might teach an 18-year-old, to the point you were making earlier of people have grown up in different times and have different experiences. My children, for instance, have had an iPad in their hands since they've
right, and that's another thing that goes back to this generation that's graduating this year or following, yeah.
Exactly. So, we are very conscious of the different experiences that people have, and we make our bread and butter with those kinds of students who come back after taking a break from higher education.
Dual enrollment too, and I mentioned to you before we went into this, I don't think a lot of maybe kids or parents are aware that you can, in the senior year or even junior year of high school, dual enroll. Tara, you have a...
Yeah, we have a number of students in our dual enrollment program, and many of these students utilize the Early College Access Program, which does give them a 50% reduction in tuition. And they complete that application through their high school in tandem with the admissions office. And we also are very fortunate as a school to offer funding for an Early College Access grant, and that grant funding comes through the state of Maryland. But a number of our students who are in the dual enrollment program, it is a need-based grant, also received grant funding to take classes in their senior year.
And those classes, and by the way, the reason I'm mentioning this is, again, I have a senior in high school, and she does take advantage of this dual enrollment at Anne Arundel Community College. Those credits, hopefully, will be able to transfer to a 4-year institution when she's ready to do that, yes?
Absolutely, absolutely. So students are really taking classes immediately in a college setting. And we find that students who have an opportunity to test the waters, to actually get in and sample college classes are better prepared in their freshman year. They have an idea of what to expect. They've worked with college level professors at that point. We do always like to remind students, of course, is the fact that these are actually college level courses. So they will be on their college transcripts. So when they transfer to a four-year university, not only will they get credit for these classes, grades will actually stay on their transcript even though they are in high school.
Okay, so this is where we turn this show completely over to Tara because she knows a lot about financial aid, and this is going to come in handy for almost everybody applying to any college, regardless, but especially for Anne Arundel Community College. There is, starting this past year, the Maryland College Promise, right, Tara?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, we have our very first class with us this year, and they're the first class receiving the Maryland Promise for the fall of 2019 and then also renewing into the spring of 2020.
And this was really easy and went flawlessly for everybody, right?
Yeah.
We're laughing. It's very complicated.
We are laughing.
Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to come back and talk about the Maryland College Promise and all the intricacies, how to apply for it, how to keep it, and more. We'll be right back on the 1430 Connection. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me is Dr. Mike Gavin, Anne Arundel Community College Vice President for Learning, and Tara Carew, Financial Aid Director for Anne Arundel Community College, and we're about to talk nothing but financial aid. Tara?
Well, our timing is actually perfect because we are in the middle of FAFSA season. So the FAFSA opens up on October 1st, and in the state of Maryland, we're very fortunate. We actually have quite a bit of Maryland funding available for our students. But the primary deadline they need to watch is the March 1st deadline. So we're in the middle of that October 1st to March 1st window for completing the FAFSA.
So the FAFSA, you go online. Your student has probably already told you about it. If they haven't, you go online, look up FAFSA. It's a federal form. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's actually another exciting development. It's now available on an app. So if you go to your app store and you pull up My Student Aid, it's an app that you can download, and you can complete the FAFSA on your phone. And I think the students are actually going to find the phone app a little bit easier to read.
And definitely more their generation.
And definitely more their generation. And so the Department of Education is really expanding the way that they reach out to students as well. So they're not only offering it on a computer-based version, but also offering it on a mobile version.
Okay, but all college money starts with FAFSA. You have
all
to fill it out.
All college money starts with the FAFSA,
okay.
yeah. And that is a common question that we receive from parents is they say, well, what if my student may not be eligible for, let's say, the federal Pell Grant? Should I still fill out my FAFSA? And the answer is absolutely yes. Many of the scholarship programs, institutional scholarship programs, require a FAFSA. A lot of times we will find students will get halfway through the semester and realize they need additional funding, and so they'll need to take out some form of a student loan. If the FAFSA is in place, then they're ready to go.
Okay, let's talk about Maryland Promise.
Okay, so the Maryland Promise, very exciting new Maryland source of funding, and it was actually developed in the last year for this entering class. $15 million was set aside for this particular program. And we meaning all of the community colleges, have been working closely with the high schools to kind of spread the word about what's happening with the Maryland Promise. So with the Maryland Promise, for eligibility's sakes, it's for students who have graduated within the last 2 years or completed their GED in Maryland within the last 2 years. It also requires a 2.3 high school grade point average. And the most interesting thing I think about this particular scholarship is that it is need-based, but they've been very specific with the need requirements. So for the Maryland scholarship, it does require that if you're in a single-parent household, that you have an income of $100,000 or less. If you're in a two-parent household, it's $150,000 or less in household income. So it's very clearly spelled out.
And it is not to be considered free. It's not, you're not getting a free college education with us.
Right.
Okay.
And that is correct. I guess the way to look at this is that it is designed for students who are able to attend school on a full-time basis, because you do need to be enrolled full-time, and continue in a very sequential manner, okay, without gaps in your education. And upon graduation, there is a service requirement. And that's the thing I think that is maybe overlooked often.
And it doesn't mean community service.
It does not mean community service. So when they talk about a service or service obligation, it requires that students work for 1 year and file Maryland taxes for 1 year for every year that they receive
Work
the
in
scholarship.
Maryland.
You don't have to work in Maryland, but you need to file Maryland taxes. That was something that changed in the most recent bill that went through.
Okay.
So you can work in D.C., but as long as you're living in Maryland and filing Maryland taxes, you'll be
It's
fine with the
interesting. It's
service
different from other
requirement.
states where I've heard, like, for instance, New York, where they make you, where they make you stay in New York.
Exactly. And it was originally written that way, and then they did change it just recently.
Okay, because this is so nuanced and so complicated, how do parents and students figure this out? Do they come to Anne Arundel Community College and say, please help me?
Right. So I think the thing to say to all parents and students is that we need to move quickly on this particular scholarship just because timing is of an essence. And the best source for getting the information is actually going to be the Maryland Higher Education Commission. And if you go out there, you can click on Maryland Promise. It's right on their front page, and it will give you all the details of the scholarship.
Okay, but for those that like for maybe have trouble with the English language or maybe have trouble just getting all this information from a website, is there an actual person or office they can go to and say, please help?
And that's the great thing about working with community colleges. We are accessible.
Okay.
So if a student's having any problems or has any questions about the Maryland Promise, by all means, call your local community college. Call Anne Arundel Community College.
The financial aid office?
The financial aid office,
Okay.
yep. And we have pretty much our entire staff. We're a staff of experts on the Maryland Promise Scholarship application and the Maryland Promise Scholarship.
What's one of the odder degrees that most people might not think of Anne Arundel Community College for?
That's a good question. Well, we have some that come to mind, mechatronics, which is
I don't even know what it
That's
meant.
right.
Okay.
It's basically fixing machines. We could name it a little differently, but it leads to a great job. Another fact that I like to tell people is we have 39,000 students, which is bigger than most state schools. So we are a big institution with a big reach with pretty much, if there's an interest, we can probably put a program up that might get you to the workforce quickly.
Somebody asked me recently about truck driving. Do you
Yep. We have a CDL license.
CDL program.
Okay.
So we have both what are called credit and non-credit programs. The non-credit programs are simply that you wouldn't find them necessarily in a traditional setup. And CDL is one of those. But anything that really leads to a workforce credential, we generally offer it in some capacity.
Well, I wanted to also mention, too, a lot of these programs, we have programs on the credit side and programs on the continuing education side. And our scholarship program, we have a very robust scholarship program that offers scholarships on both sides of the house, whether you're going through the credit programs and seeking an AA or an AS degree, or if you're on the credit side or continuing education side and seeking a certificate or some sort of licensure. There are scholarships available on both sides, so a very robust scholarship program. I think last year we actually gave out roughly $1.2 million in scholarships,
Wow.
and a third of the recipients were continuing education students.
Do you have like a work-study program, or do you help place students that are looking for jobs within the college or
Both.
outside?
We have all of the above. So we have a work-study program, which I'm not really familiar with the mechanisms of, but
Right.
there are students working in the college.
Yeah.
We have internship programs for both internal and external placement for students, and offices that both also help find careers and jobs for students, both while they're students and when they've matriculated.
Having just finished the college touring process, which started, in kindergarten, basically. One of the things that became the most important for my ears, not necessarily for my 17-year-old's ears, was, what are you going to do for me for making me employable? And so there were some colleges that really focused on the internships right from the beginning. That was almost as important as the academic stuff. And then there were others that didn't even mention them. And so that was an important part of my learning process.
I like to categorize the work that we do into two categories. One is transfer, and the other is work. The workforce programs, we have relationships basically with anybody in the community that employs people in that field, and we have experts that also help us find those kind of connections. So
Thank you both for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
likewise.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Donna Cole. This is the 1430 Connection. We'll see you next week.